Swayam Ru- Swayam Ru- Okay, again we'll do because recording is started. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातां सहगणरघुनाथान्वितां तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तु ते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे। So I'm happy to see all of you, and I could see Aparajit. They are being joining from India, right? So they are in currently in India. So thank you for joining in, and all others who are there. So we would start the discussion. So before starting the discussion, we would actually have that the already Adityanaran Prabhu has covered chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. So chapter 1, you can actually also keep, if you want to have a notepad or something, so that you can make notes for certain discussion points. So that would be easier for you to revise. But anyway, we will share this recording also so that you can also see it. So the first chapter was discussed was about observing the. It was entitled as observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Srila Prabhupada defines that way. But if you see Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit, there are different names. Just wanted to let you know that what are the names. For example, if that would be asked, the first chapter is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. And the second chapter, you can see in our Bhagavad Gita as it is. So there is a name called Contents of Gita Summarized, but it is also named as Sankhya Yoga. So if somebody says Sankhya Yoga, it is chapter 2. Chapter 3 is named as Karma Yoga and is the same as Srila Prabhupada has given, Karma Yoga. So we are going to discuss chapter number 4 onwards. So before we start, let me ask like a little question about that. What is the main theme in chapter 1 so that we can see how we can transition to chapter 4. So what is the main theme? Anybody remembers from the last class? Can unmute or anybody if they want to say something, just raise your hands and I can actually raise your hands. So that means you have to raise using the app. Okay, so Divyansh, yeah.
So when Arjuna is overcome by grief, he doesn't know what to do. Like he surrenders unto Krishna. So like I guess grief and
Yeah,
compassion.
it is called Arjuna Vishada Yoga. So there is a grief. So Arjuna observing the armies and becomes overwhelmed by compassion for relatives and foreseeing no enjoyment in victory, fearful of sinful reactions, and concern about the harmful. That's what Prabhupada told. Concern about the harmful effects of the war. He was thinking that all the different family tradition would be destroyed. So all those things was there. So, and then Arjuna decides not to fight. So then what happens? How there is a link to the second chapter? Dhritarashtra becomes hopeful of not losing the kingdom for his sons, but Sanjay describes how Krishna inspires Arjuna to fight. So that gives the prelude to the second chapter. What is the main theme in the second chapter? As Srila Prabhupada says, it is the summary of the Gita. So it is actually having all the components which is described more detail in the chapters in Gita. That's why it's called contents of Gita summarized. So it is actually, it starts with the important verse where Arjuna accepts Krishna as Guru, and that is the important verse. And then he tells about that we are not this body, our real identity is spirit soul. And after that, he describes what is jnana, what is sakama karma, what is buddhi yoga. Buddhi yoga means intelligence, using the intelligence in service of the Lord. And then he describes, because first he talks about people who are working at the karma principle. We'll talk about karma a little bit more when I'm going to discuss chapter 4, 5, and 6. So here, uh, the second chapter main theme is that we are not this body, we are spirit souls. And if one understands that, then one can go into the higher levels of understanding. That is the primary level of understanding. So how the second chapter goes into third chapter, Krishna told Arjuna to keep all abominable actions far away by buddhi yoga. He says not to do different abominable actions. So he shows a hierarchy there also. Kamat sanjayate kamah. So, okay, what is that verse? Anybody remembers?
Sanjayate kama.
Can you just do you remember the cycle? Entire cycle? Anyway, can you
meditating on the objects? So
yeah. Dhyato vishayan punsha sangha teshu avaja. Then sangat sanjayate kama kamat abhijayate krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat shruti vibhramaha shruti bhranshat buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati. So that is the sequence that happened, and how one can come out of that sequence is described, and how a person who is totally Krishna conscious acts. That is the Sthita Prajna series of verses. And then it transitions to the Karma Yoga chapter where Krishna prescribes action based on Nishkama karma. What is Nishkama karma? There are karma can be defined. The karma is the way the actions that we perform. So Nishkama karma is okay. Divyansh, you wanted to say what is Nishkama karma?
It's like karma, but you do your duty to do your duty and not for the results. So
That's
I
very
think it
good.
ties into the you're entitled to your duty, but not the results of what you do.
That's very good. Very good. That is Nishkama karma. And what is Sakama karma?
When you like work for the results and like for fruitive results and
Yeah, when you're working, you are thinking about the result. Like I'm doing this, I'm writing the exam, I'll get some results. So that always is there. Or something you are in your mind, you know that the results is going to come. If I'm doing this activity, the results are coming. So that is sakam karma. Any desires within. And as you rightly mentioned, the nishkam, and when the nishkam karma is done for the service of the Lord, then it becomes a higher degree of karma, which no longer remains as karma. It is a devotional service or bhakti towards the Lord. Okay. So then there is how we can transitioning into the fourth chapter is Krishna presents transcendental knowledge by which one can be protected from the bondage of. He tells about towards the end of the third chapter that it is the lust. It is the desire to, what is lust? Lust is the desire to enjoy separate from the Supreme Lord. Enjoy separate means, for example, this Lord has provided us this mobile phone or anything you can see, whatever He provides. Mobile phone is not visible, I know, but you may see a little bit. Some mobile phone or books or something. When we are using it for our purpose without thinking about the Lord, then it is actually sakam karma. And when you are thinking, like for example, I am using the mobile phone to do activities to serve the devotees, then it is the use of the same mobile phone but used for a different purpose. So it is the intention in the purpose which defines what type of activities we do. Our intentions defines, and the same way, like when you are cooking the food, or your mother cooks the food, whoever cooks it. So when you are cooking it, and then you, after cooking, then you are very nicely offering in front of Lord, and then offering with mood of devotion. You can just put it there and say, "Oh Lord, you okay," then pay obeisances and come. That is one way. Other way is, "Oh, I'm putting there," and then you are saying, "Oh Lord, please accept it. My mother has made it, or I have made it by your for your pleasure. Please come here and have this prasad." And then you in that mood, when their intention and mood and purpose is to please the devotees of the Lord or the Lord, then it is bhakti. So now in all these 6 chapters, the main theme is karma. Bhakti chapters will come in the next, like from 6 to 12 is where the bhakti is coming. That sandwich part is coming. So it's like a sandwich, like you have 1 to 6, which is karma, and then there is bhakti, and then the last is actually, I think there is jnana. Last 6 chapter is talking about jnana. So all the important things are there in the sandwich. Like if you see both the breads, the important thing is there in the, like the cheese or something, or the lettuce, something is there that is more important than the bread itself. So bhakti is the chunk, and which will be described in those chapters. So let's now venture into the chapter number 4. So chapter number 4 is entitled as transcendental knowledge, and in Sanskrit, it is called as Jnana Karma Sannyas Yoga. If somebody want to write, you can write it down, so that, for example, it may be asked in the question, like what is Jnana Karma? So with that understanding. And Srila Prabhupada says this as transcendental knowledge. So this chapter starts with the question that was there in the previous question, that the lust is very difficult to overcome. Lust is a desire to enjoy separate from the Lord. So that is the lust. So Krishna says, if one can use his intelligence, because as last time I remember Divyansh was saying that the intelligence, beyond intelligence is the soul. So using that particular principle, soul will work on the intelligence part and make it stronger. How it makes strong? By when you are actually engaged in the service of the Lord. So when it is strong, then one can conquer the lust, to make it very simple. So now the transcendental knowledge. So the transcendental knowledge, this particular chapter is actually given an acronym called EARS. EARS. So ears, is good for hearing. We get our knowledge not from our eyes. Definitely we read and everything, but it is by hearing we will get the knowledge, and that we would see in the 7th chapter, as Krishna says. When the 7th chapter will come, we discuss more on that. But we are getting the knowledge by hearing more than by reading, because for example, when we were small kids, we have no faculty of knowledge by reading or doing things. How do we learn? Learn by hearing from our parents, from our teachers, for somebody, by our grandparents, right? So hearing is the first process that we learn from. So transcendental knowledge. So now hearing about whom, and this particular chapter tells that if we want to hear about Krishna, for example, let's give you an example. If you want to serve somebody, or if you have to have some service, you have to know that person, yes? Or without knowing, you will just go and do the service. Can anybody tell? Can you do a service to a person that you don't even know? What to talk about service? Anything you want to do, you have to have a kind of relationship. You should know that person, right? How you can serve? Same way, Bhagavad Gita in this chapter, from here onwards, it is called transcendental knowledge. It is knowledge. It's not normal knowledge. Normal knowledge is to know exactly how to do your things. Like, for example, you are getting up in the morning, you are brushing your teeth. These are mundane knowledge, or for you to just get by. And the knowledge that we read in our like mathematics, science, and everything. So these are working on the material level. When something is working on a higher level, that is called transcendental knowledge. That's why Srila Prabhupada gave it transcendental knowledge. And when we know about the Supreme Lord, because he is transcendental, he is not material. Transcendental means that nothing material. He is not made up of material elements. He is made up of elements that is spiritual, that is Satchidananda. So that now Krishna will reveal about himself as we go further. So this chapter, the first is years. E stands for eternal education. So you can write it down just for your reference, eternal education. So what it is from verse number 1 till 10. Okay, you have any question? Akshaj?
Yes, Prabhuji. So when it comes to the sandwich part, the first 6 are Karma Yoga, the middle 6 are Bhakti Yoga, which is like the most important part, and then the last 6 is Jnana and
Yeah,
Vyaya
it's
Yoga.
not yoga. It says it because yoga means to connect to something.
Yes, yeah.
First 6 chapter is mostly dealing with the chapters of related to karma.
Okay.
That is related to bhakti. Actually, bhakti yoga is explained in many chapters. Even in the jnana chapters also there is bhakti. But what I'm saying is what is the main theme there? Main theme is karma in this first 6 chapter. Main theme is bhakti there, and main theme is, even though bhakti is being discussed everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes. Harini.
Prabhuji, what is the 4th chapter in Sanskrit called?
It is called Jnana Karma Sannyas Yoga. Okay. So the first is eternal education. So eternal education starts, the verse number 1 till 10 is where the eternal education is defined. Means that covers that many verses. So we would recite one of the verse, which is verse number 2 from 4th chapter. Let me share my screen if I could do that as soon as possible. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Let me make it bigger so that it's easier for you all. Font size is smaller. Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm doing. Just okay. It's not making it bigger because I have already shared it. That's why it's not making it. So let me unshare and then do it. Just give me a minute. Now it's working on here, and now I will share it again. Yes. So the second verse is, who wants to recite this verse? Or I can recite and you can repeat after me. Whoever you are volunteering. Harini? Okay. So let me say and then you can repeat. Evam parampara praptim
Evam parampara praptim
imam rajarshayo viduhu
Imam Rajasayo Vidu
sakale neha mahata
Sakalene Hamata
yogo nashtah param tapaha.
Yogo Tashta Parantapaha.
Can read the translation?
Can I read?
Yeah, you would. I will give other verses. Let Harini do that, and then.
Okay.
This supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost.
So, what is the science Krishna is talking about? Krishna is talking about Bhagavad Gita. He gave this Bhagavad Gita in the first verse. It actually defines that he gave it to sun god, and then it came to, you can see sun god, then Vivaswan to Manu, and Manu to Ikshvaku. And then it continued through the series of he gave it to his disciple and our son, and that's how it was transferred. But somehow it was lost in between because some of the disciples did not do a good job in maintaining it. That's why it was lost. So then what happens? That eternal education means that is Krishna is saying this education that I'm giving in Gita is eternal. That's why the first 10 verses tells E is for eternal education. So then that is this particular verse here. Then what happens? Then later on from verse number 3, Arjuna's question come in verse number 4. Okay, you are saying that you gave to sun god. You have just took birth because this is happening in Kurukshetra. So about Krishna that time was about 100 years old. So he actually is saying you just got birth like 100 years old. Sun god is like millions of years old. How I would understand that you have given him this knowledge? Then Krishna reveals his real position. He says, if you see in verse number 5, he says, Aparam bhavato janma, param janma vivasvataha. Sun god Vivaswan is senior by birth to you. So, this is a question. Just a minute. He says, Bahuni me vyatitani, the personality of Godhead said, many, many births both you and I have passed, and I can remember all of them, but you cannot. So, how? Now we will recite this verse to know exactly the nature of Krishna. So, okay, Divyansh, you can repeat after me. Ajo api sannavyayatma
Joapi san avyatma
yatma bhutanam ishvaro api san
bhutanam ishvaro api san
prakritim swamadhisthaya
prakritim swam adhisthaya
sambhavami atma mayaya.
sambhavami atma mayaya.
So here what Krishna is saying, ajo api, ajo means I am unborn. Still I am born. So how we can understand this? Why Krishna is unborn? Because Krishna's body and soul is same. For us, body is different, soul is different. Body is temporary, soul is eternal. For Krishna, Krishna's body is eternal. This says Ajo api san avyaya atma. I take birth, avyaya atma, he's saying. My body is transcendental. So Krishna's body and soul is same, and our body is different from our soul. That is the difference. That's why Arjuna took birth many times. He could not understand. He is eternal friend of Krishna. He was always taking birth with Krishna. Krishna never takes birth. It actually appears and disappears. How we understand? We understand as the sun comes in the morning, then it appears in the horizon, then it disappears. But does it mean the sun has gone away? No, right? It is somewhere else. In India, it is still shining. Same way, Krishna comes, does his Leela, disappears, goes back to another universe, and this Leela is going on. That's why it's called eternal Leela of Krishna. So he says, never deteriorates, although I am the Lord of living entities. I take birth in my original transcendental form, he says. And by Atma Maya, by my own potency, nobody forces me to take birth. One thing here understanding is, we are forced to take birth. Why we are forced? Because modes of material nature allow us to. Can we decide where we are going to be born? We cannot decide, right? Who decides it? The external energy of the Lord. But Krishna can decide where he wants to be born, right? Why? Because he is transcendental. So now we would do another verse which tells about, which is a very important verse here. That is Yada Yadahi. Who is going to recite with? You can all recite with me. So we'll do it faster. Yada Yadahi Dharmasya Glanir Bharata
Glanirbhavati bharata
Abhyutthanam Dharmasya
Abhyuttana
abhyuttana
dharmasya
madharmasya
Tadatmanam srujamyaham.
Tadatmanam srajamyaham.
So here in this verse, Krishna says why he takes birth. What is it? Why he takes birth? He tells when there is a decline in the religious practice and a rise in irreligion, adharmasya. So when what is dharma? Dharma is you have learnt, right? What is dharma in the first chapter? What is
Yes,
dharma?
it's
Duty.
Yeah,
duty.
one's own duty. So when one doesn't perform his own duty and performs which is not his duty, then what happens? Krishna appears. But his real reason for appearance is this verse, which tells that to deliver the pious and annihilate the miscreants. Paritranaya sadhana vinashaya cha dushkritam. This verse is important here. This is the important verse in this. If you remember this, this is the total summum bonum of this verse. So what it says, Janma karma cha me divyam, evam yo ved. So let's recite together. Janma karma cha me divyam,
Karma karmanjane didyam.
evam yo veti tattvataha,
Evam
Evam
ved
yo veti
tattva.
tattvataha
yaktva deham punarjanma,
Tyakta deham punarjanma
nayati mameti so Arjuna.
Naiti
naiti
mameti
mameti
sojuna.
sojana.
Now, this particular verse, if you remember, that is the main message in the fourth chapter. Krishna says, one who knows the transcendental nature of my appearance and activities, one who knows about Krishna's birth, his activities. That both things are transcendental. Transcendental is not material. Okay. Upon leaving the body, takes his birth again in this material world. My turn. So, what happens after leaving the body? One will. Yeah. If you remember, Adityanand Prabhu told that we are preparing for the eventual death which is going to come. It can come in any time, right? But what would be that will did we really die? Did the soul ever die? What does Krishna say in second chapter?
The soul never dies.
The soul never dies. So how it will eternally be there, and what is the nature of the soul? It wants to go and serve the super soul, which is Bhagavan. So that's why attains to my eternal abode. That is the goal. Goal of the soul to go back to the Supreme Lord. So that is the main message here in the fourth chapter. So now the second term here, you can see the screen here, is accurate understanding. That is EARS, right? Accurate understanding. So Krishna gives and misunderstand. There is some common misunderstanding about karma. So he clears it up. Then the third is removing reactions, that, which is from 16 to 24. One can act above both good and bad karma and get no reaction. So now let me ask a question. So what is a good karma? What is a bad karma?
Like good karma is against himself and pious actions, while bad karma is the result of sins.
Okay. So now we can define what is karma. Karma is something which is the activities, not something. Karma are the activities are defined in our scriptures that will give us good results. What are the good karma that one can do? Be good to others. What other things one can do? Give charity if one is able to do charity. What else one can do? What is good karma? Any other examples?
Be helpful to others when they need it.
Yeah, be helpful. So all these conditions, all this karma is good karma. It will have good reactions, but it will still have reactions. Whether it is a good karma or a bad karma or karma, that is not defined in the scriptures, and one has to go through it. So then the results will be not good. What are the some bad karma? Is harming somebody in one way or the other. That is one of them. So there are and or having a hate about for somebody. All those different kinds of activities are incurring also reactions, bad reactions. So bad reactions. And what is vikarma? There is third type of thing which is called as vikarma here. I would actually show the picture. This is bad karma. This guy is doing a bad karma. This is harvesting the fruit. This is a good karma. And this is a karma when it is done for the service of the Lord. Like here you see a devotee praying to the Lord, then it is called vikarma. Vikarma means when they do these activities, they would have no reactions. Why? Because Krishna will act on them and there will be no reaction. Because Krishna is beyond karma, so there would be no reactions. When you are in the karma principle, when you're in the material principle, then there would be reaction. Whether you do a good activity or a bad activity, both will have reactions. But when you do activities for the pleasure of the Lord, then there would be no reactions. So that is called vikarma. So karma, akarma, and vikarma. Three things. Karma, vikarma, and akarma. Okay. So vikarma is the bad activities, karma is good activities, and akarma is activities performed to please the Lord. Okay. So then the next is removing reactions. Oh, okay, we just read removing reactions. S is sacrifice. For this, there is a very important verse. That is actually, I can just share here. So that verse is, verse it is. It is a verse about Guru. Tadvidhi pranipaten. Somebody remembers what number of this verse is?
34, I think.
Yeah. Okay. What verse 10? Oh, somebody is reciting verses at the background, right? That is good. What is that verse? Yeah, this one, text 34. This is an important one. How one can get the knowledge then? So here it is said, Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninaha tattvadarshinaha. This is an important verse. Just remember how one can get. Like if you remember in the second chapter, Krishna told that, oh, you are my guru, please guide me. Here, how one can be guided, what should be the proper way to be surrendered to a guru, that is being described. Because when you surrender to a guru, he will give you the knowledge that will give you an understanding about Krishna, about the spiritual world. So learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master, which is a guru. Inquire from him submissively. Submissively means that you are not. What is submissively means?
Like you ask like kindly and like as a student.
Yeah.
Instead of just like demanding stuff and yeah.
Yeah, there is a demanding way and there is a submissive way. Submissive way is you are very polite and you really in your heart you want to know about it and you are asking the questions. Oh, tell me about karma, tell me about jnana. So guru then defines you what that means. Submissively, and how one should go render service. Two things are there. Submissively asking and doing some service for him. Because when you serve someone, he becomes happy and gladly give you what he has. Our parents also like that, right? When they serve you or you serve them, you get what you want because by just pleasing them. Same way, first to get the mercy of the guru, you have to serve them and ask questions submissively. So that will please them and they can impart knowledge. Why they can impart the knowledge? Because they know it. Why your parents can tell you certain things? Because they have some experience more than you. That's why they can tell, okay, don't go to the fire and touch it. Because somebody might have touched it, oh, this is very hot. So because they have experience, they can tell you. So this is important verse. And then the last point is sacrifice here. To get transcendental knowledge, one does sacrifice. Sacrifice is yajna here. Yajna is translated as sacrifice. And also, if you see, sacrifice means to satisfy the Supreme Lord Vishnu. That is 425. That. So the important verse here would be the last one, where Krishna gives what is called as the peace. Is it the peace formula here?
That's in 5th chapter.
Fifth chapter. Okay. So we'll continue to the fifth one. So what are the 4 points in the fourth? Eternal education. Eternal education means Krishna sets up the instruction manual, how one can follow it. Then accurate understanding. He gives an understanding what is karma, what is akarma, what is vikarma, and how one can please him. So removing reactions, it tells by serving him, reactions can be removed. And then the sacrifice. Sacrifice done for the pleasure of the Lord purifies oneself. So that is there. So sacrifice means to satisfy the Supreme Lord. And it also means to satisfy the Guru, because he is a representative of Supreme Lord. So now we will transition into the fifth chapter. That is called as Karma Sannyasa Yoga. So in Sanskrit, it is Karma Sannyasa Yoga. You can write it down. And Srila Prabhupada says it, Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. So let us see what are the important components here. So in the verse number 1, Arjuna asked the question to Krishna. So you told that sannyas is better, karma is better. I am not sannyas, because sannyas is what? One should not focus on the activities of karma. One should go renounce things. Krishna was saying about renouncing. Then Arjuna is asking, renouncing is better or doing karma is better? That was the question which starts the chapter with. Then Krishna says karma yoga is better because you are doing some activities. Then why renunciation is not better, or what you called as tyaga is not better? What did Krishna say there? Any thoughts? Why karma is better?
Because, like, with renunciation, like you're not doing your duty or your job, and like I think second of all, because even though you might renounce everything in the world, your mind still might dwell on like stuff like fruitive actions or
Okay. Very nice.
like objects and all, and that's really not at all like doing anything like higher than like what you're supposed to, and it's just still not practical.
Yeah. So the reason Krishna gives here is activities one can perform, and when he can do karma by activities, one, because of the nature of the soul is restless and it needs some activity. One should do the activity. When renounces the activity, he can only do when he is sufficiently purified, as Divyansh told, because if it is not, purification is not done, then what will happen? One can hanker for doing some other activity, even though one is renounced it, but he's thinking about the same thing. Oh, I have renounced it. Oh, I would not see the phone today. Yeah, I'm just giving a mundane example just to make, I'll not see it. I'm not going to see it. Okay. And then you keep the phone there. But after this, sometime, oh, I have a desire to do something. There is some important thing to see. And then you keep and see. So this kind of renunciation is not proper. But when is sufficiently purified, he is totally engrossed. For example, you have studies and you have an exam to complete. You are totally engrossed in that. So you think that this is not important. You keep it aside and work on it. And then you forget about, but there was a phone and I have to see it. So this is an example to explain you, once all the material hankerings go away, then when he takes renunciation, it is just to please the Lord. So that's what Krishna is saying. Renunciation and working in the spirit of renunciation are the same, but for Arjuna, working is better because premature renunciation is distressful. And for this particular chapter, the acronym is STEP. Can everybody see the screen also? Okay. So the step first is from verse number 1 to 12 is stay in the world. So staying in the world is first from 1 to 12. Then second, T is for three doers. There are three doers. Who are the doers? The individual soul. See, any activity, there is three doers: individual soul, super soul, and material nature. So who is super soul? The Supreme Lord. And where he is residing? Residing in our heart. And what is soul? Soul is we ourselves. Okay. And what is the material nature? Yeah, somebody, yeah, muted. You're muted. I think Akshas is muted.
Prakriti.
Yeah, Prakriti. So Prakriti is actually the external energy of the Lord. He does all the activities by the agencies, like the three modes of material nature is one of them. Our body is also made up of Prakriti. So there is a desire, like for example, I'll give you an example to make you understand how there are three doers. For example, have you ever printed any document using your computer?
Yes.
So what you do first, you select certain things and say
Yeah.
Control P or something, press the button in the
Yeah.
computer. So you started the thing, okay? So do you think that you are going inside the computer and then printing and coming out from there as a print?
No.
What really happens? There is in computer, the processing happens, it gives the commands within itself, and then it goes and communicates with the printer. Then printer starts moving, and the paper is which is there fed into it, it comes out, and then you see the last result of printing, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
who is the doer here? Who is doing it? Your desire to print is what is the soul,
Printed.
soul's desire. Soul here is here, and you can understand this whatever is happening at the background, so that the print command goes to the printer is the hand of external energy of the Lord or Prakriti. So Prakriti is working here, and finally you get the print. But how the soul get all the inspiration about is from the super soul, because he is orchestrating everything. So that's why there are three doers here. Super soul will not do see, it will sanction. Like for example, when this particular computer things are working and you get the printout, there is a sanctioning authority. Who is sanctioning? The computer itself. So you have to press a button, that is your desire soul, and at the background things are happening is where the super soul is acting on material nature, and material nature is producing the final result, which is the printout. So all the three doers. That is from 13 to 16. And then it is equal vision. E is for equal vision. And last is the peace. So STEP, step. So let's see this chapter. So main theme of this chapter is Yukta Vairagya or renunciation. What is Yukta Vairagya? Renunciation. Renunciation, this term is what is Yukta Vairagya? To do everything for the pleasure of the Lord is called Yukta Vairagya. Whatever activities we do, we offer it to the Lord, or we think about the Lord and do the activity. For example, if when you are studying, say, I am studying because I could understand this subject better, as well as I can also work on, like for example, I can also think about, because if I know the subject matter, I can understand the scriptures better, I can understand the Lord better. So if that is the mood, then it is Yukta Vairagya. But if it is just like you are doing the renunciation just for the sake of enjoying, like as I was mentioning about the mobile example, like you are just saying, like artificially saying, okay, I will not see the screen for some time, but you have no other work to do. So what you will do, you'll take out and try seeing it. But when you are engaged in the work to please the Lord, or to do your activities, like for example, you're looking into your exams, you are very much focused there, you don't see the phone, right? You forget about that. So that's how it works. So that kind of renunciation is Yukta Vairagya. That is mentioned there. So the verse that we are going to recite in this particular chapter is We see what were the verses. There is an important verse here in this section, which is okay, working with detachment, 5:10. So let's go to the 5:10 verse. Okay. So this is how the action is done for the Supreme Lord. What this verse is, we can recite together. Brahmani adhaya karmani
Ani
Niyadaya karmani
sangam tyaktva karoti yah
Sangam Tyaktva Karoti Yaha
lipyate na sa papena
Lipyate
Lipyate
nasapapenya
Nasapapena
padmapatramivambhasa.
Padmapatram
Padmapatram
ivambhasa.
Ivambhasa.
Has anybody seen a lotus leaf?
Yes.
So if you put water drop on it, does it stay or it actually does it wet the leaf or not? Or it brings small droplets or something like that.
It's a small droplets.
So it never touches the leaf. Leaf
Yes.
never gets wet, right? So that
Yes.
example is given by Krishna here. One who performs his duty without attachment, one is not attached to the things, surrendering the results unto the Supreme Lord, is unaffected by any sinful reactions. Because Arjuna was worried that that was one of his question, right? He was saying that I don't want to do sinful activity. Then Krishna says, okay, kill your relatives. Why? Because they are not doing what is dharma, what is their real duty. That's why you have to use the weapons against them. But Arjuna was attached. So then what Krishna says? Without attachment, you do, surrendering the results to me, to Krishna. So then whatever sins would be take, I would take care of. Because I am the Supreme Lord. I am not affected by sin. Krishna is not affected by sin. Why? He is transcendental. Who is affected by the sin? Who is material? One who is material is affected by the sinful things. But one who is beyond material, he cannot be affected. One who is spiritual, he cannot be affected. So, how? When you see the lotus leaf and you see the water, do you think the water ever wets the leaf? No. It just rotates there and it falls down. There is no attachment of the leaf and the water. Because if it is attached, it will wet it, right? It does its work and go. So that is the example here. Another verse we would see is in the section. Let's go to this particular part, like 3 doers we already discussed. Equal vision. So everybody knows this verse. Do you know which verse I am talking about? 5:18. Everybody familiar with this verse? Anybody? Okay.
A little bit.
Okay, so let's recite together. Vidya Vinaya Sampanne
Vidya Vinaya Sampanne
Brahmane Gavihastini
Brahmane
Brahmane
Gavihastini
Gavihastini
Tuni Chaiva Shvapake Cha
Tunicheva
Tunichaiva
Shapake Cha
Svapake Cha
Pandita Darshinaha.
Pandita
Pandita
Samarshinaha.
Samadarshinaha.
So, what is said here is the humble sages, by virtue of true knowledge, when one has true knowledge, he sees everyone with equal vision. That's what Krishna is saying. So, the true knowledge, this particular chapter is called Karma Yoga, action in Krishna consciousness. And then one attains knowledge. So, what is the true knowledge? Krishna says equal vision. So, this is this particular point, equal vision. Since the super soul resides in every living being, the advanced spiritualist is able to see in every living form Krishna. Because super soul is residing in everywhere. So when he sees a dog, he sees a tree, he sees any living entity, he sees the Lord. Everyone equally. So that's why there is no way to, okay, yeah, Aparajit?
Prabhuji, I was just commenting that one other term for this is also what was that verse again? Uttam Adhikari, right?
Definitely. It's a Uttam Adhikari who it's a stage of one who is a Uttam Adhikari. He sees everyone equal. He don't discriminate with anything. Yeah, that's a very good term. Yeah. But here, in context of Bhagavad Gita, it is referring to a spiritualist who sees super soul in everyone. And last verse for this, and then we would, last section for this one is peace. So let's see the peace part. Equal vision we have covered. Then peace is 27 to 29. There is a peace formula that Krishna gives towards the end. So what is the peace formula? So let's see. So that is the last verse. Let's recite with Krishna gives the, if we have these qualities, then our life will be peaceful. How? So let's recite this verse. Bhoktaram yajna tapasam
Moktaram
Yatapasam
sarvaloka maheshwaram
Sarvalokamaheshwaram
truhudam sarvabhutanam
Suhridam
Sarvabhutanam
Sarvabhutanam
jnanamam shantim richati.
Nyatva Mam Shanti
Jnanam
Vrachati.
So what he says, Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. He says, first he says, what is this peace? This is Shantim Richati means peace. How can? Bhoktaram yajna tapasam. So all the sacrifices that one do, he is, we know that who is the, for whose pleasure we do the sacrifices? For us or for the pleasure of the Lord?
for the pleasure of the Lord.
Why? Why we do the full pleasure of the Lord? Because he is having all these things. We are not the proprietor.
He
Right?
gives us
Proprietor means
the
what?
stuff.
Proprietor means, anybody knows what proprietor means?
Provider?
Like
Proprietor.
it means like owner.
Like for example, if I have a computer or if I have this phone, so I am the proprietor of this because I own this.
Oh, you're the consumer.
Consumer or the owner? The house
Yeah.
is would be in the name of your father or mother. So they are proprietors there, but they are temporary proprietor. Who is the real proprietor?
Supreme Lord.
Why? Because
He makes the stuff.
why he's
Because he makes it.
yeah, everything in the house. Do you make the wood? No.
No.
Make the bricks? No.
No.
Make anything which is there in the house, it's always made by nature, and we take it from there and we build our house.
Yes.
So that's why we have to praise the Supreme Lord. Yes, what is the question, Advaita Chandra?
I just wanted to add that on this point that even after we may leave, that the proprietorship of Krishna remains because we may leave the house, we may move somewhere else, we may not be there. And at that point, is that our house anymore? No, it's the property of Krishna.
Point, Advaita Chandra. Even though we are there or not, that's why Krishna eternally is there. That's why he is Bhoktaram Yajna Tapasam. For all our sacrifices, when we understand this, and when we understand Sarvaloka Maheshwaram, he is the beneficiary of all the sacrifices. He is the Supreme Lord of all planets and demigods, Sarvaloka Maheshwaram. He is the friend, Sruhudam, friend of everyone. He is our ultimate friend. When we know this, what happened? We get the peace. Why we are not peaceful? What is the reason of we being not peaceful? Because we think this is mine. This I have to give. So what happens when, for example, this is a notebook. This is my notebook. And if somebody takes it, I would say, oh, I would have some kind of like, if I have done so many important notes here and somebody takes it, what will happen?
all the
You
notes are
will ask for it. You would want it back because you're valuable notes.
What if you have lost it? You will be so anxiety, right? Because
Yeah.
you've done a lot of work doing that.
Yes.
So But what happens, like what the point I wanted to say here is that then I would not be peaceful. Because why? Because I am attached to it. But for example, if I have a notebook which is always there with me and I have an understanding that it will never be lost, because we are attached to the material things which are, that's why we actually feel that separation. But if you know that this notebook, what is the notebook? If you know that Krishna, we are the soul, Krishna is the super soul, and he is the proprietor of everything, and he will always remain. And if you serve him, then we can get all our goals. Then that notebook will never be lost.
Yeah.
So if you know that this notebook is going to be lost someday, do we have anxiety? No anxiety, because you know that it is, you have to keep it safely, otherwise it will be lost. So you are keeping it safely and it can be lost. But when you know that something cannot be lost, then you are peaceful. And another way of looking at it, like if you know that you have memorized all your notes and you have a copy of this, then you will also be peaceful. Both ways you will be peaceful. Okay, I have somewhere it is a copy of this. So even if it is lost, I can actually get it. So these two things are there. So now we would go into any, we'll do the questions towards the end. Let's do the sixth chapter now. So the sixth chapter is entitled, you can write it down, Dhyana Yoga, and the same Dhyana Yoga is also in Sanskrit, but somewhere it is also called Atma Sanyama Yoga. Okay, so what is the connection here from this chapter to the other chapter? The connection is that in this chapter, in the verses, Krishna mentions about Ashtanga Yoga. So in the sixth chapter, which is called about Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, so that is there. So let's see the acronym for it. So the acronym for it is EASY. First thing, enemy or a friend. So these 9 verses says is about our mind. Mind is our friend and also can act as our enemy. Can you give an example when our mind will act as an enemy?
When I shouldn't be eating more than I go for that extra gulab jamun.
Okay, yes. Because it may be not good for your health. Yes, Amarajit.
Or maybe when you're doing japa and then your mind wants you to like go check the cricket scores for a match on the phone or like watch a video at the same time.
Very true, very true. So that is when it is acting as your enemy. When it acts as your friend,
Want to achieve something and it motivates you.
It helps us do math.
oh, that's nice. And what else? It helps you to do certain activities in a very good mode of, mode of goodness, as Prabhuji was saying, right? That I want to do it, not mode of passion, that you are in a good state of mind. Yeah. When other times, when it is, okay, so what is the underlying factor which decides that mind would be our friend and mind would be our enemy? What is the factor which decides? Or let's put it this way. How we can ensure that mind does activities which are good for us? Or what should be the status of the mind so that we do good activities and not indulge in bad activities? Let's do this way. Mind would act as a friend.
If it's controlled.
Yes. So the important part is control. So this particular chapter is talking about controlling the mind. And mind can be controlled by Ashtanga Yoga. Why it is called Ashtanga Yoga? Because there are 8 processes there. So you can see here in this thing, you don't have to remember this, just wanted to say that there are these different steps. In these steps, Yoga Rurukshu says is where you are controlling the mind, where the yogi is actually doing that. So that's why it's called Ashtanga Yoga. Yama, Niyama, Asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana. So yama and niyama is prohibitions and regulations. How to do it, how to control. Don't go into the details. Just wanted to tell that when one is in the stage of dhyana and samadhi, the higher stage, then he can understand the supreme about the spiritual nature. That is the yoga stage. But then Krishna says that this is difficult. Arjuna says, "Oh, this is so difficult for me. I cannot do it. I have to fight. How I can focus?" Krishna says the way to do the yoga, that one has to sit straight and look at the tip of the nose and then meditate. All those things he tells, control your senses. So Arjuna says, I am a Kshatriya. It's very difficult for me to do that. Yeah, what question, Aparajit? You have a question?
Oh, sorry, Prabhuji. I think I forgot to lower my hand from earlier.
Okay. So the next section is 10 to 36 is about Ashtanga Yoga. And the third one is success and failure. Easy S stands for success and failure. So Arjuna asks, what happens one faithfully takes to the yogic process? So Arjuna's question was that if one does yoga process, let's say, and somehow he could not complete it, what will happen? Then Krishna says, he will not be lost. Whatever he has done, the endeavor would be there. Because this was done, because this has to be done for the pleasure of the Lord. Here he says, but later falls away without perfecting his spiritual consciousness. What will happen? The unsuccessful spiritualist is seemingly left in a no man's land, having failed to attain the spiritual satisfaction and simultaneously wasted all these opportunities. But he gets an opportunity to come back to this world and also do his things. So two things he actually mentions to control the mind. There is a verse which tells about like, for example, Arjuna asks that this mind is so obstinate. I cannot control it. As I cannot put the air in my hand. Can you have the air? Can you put the air in your hand? Anyway, can anybody control the air and take the air within their hands?
No.
Or the wind?
There's something called a balloon, so you could use that.
There will be some air, definitely. But can you control, can you take all the air in your hand and capture it?
No.
Same way, the mind cannot be captured. So to capture the mind or to control the mind, one has to do two activities, and that is abhyasa and vairagya. Two things. What is abhyasa? That is following the principles of yoga. Do's. And what is vairagya? Renounce unfavorable desires. So these two things has to be done to control the mind. So what is abhyasa in our term? How we can do that? For example, if you have to train your mind to learn a particular subject, what you have to do? You have to every day sit some time and practice it. Yes. To understand anything, any math also, you have to practice, right? That is called abhyasa. That is practice. Following the principles that is given in the like your handbook. And what is vairagya? How you can be successful there. So that vairagya is to renounce whatever unfavorable, like for example, when you are studying and then there is some cricket score coming or something coming, and you go and see that score, or you are like attracted to play, you go and you have to be like following principles means you have a set time for your studying, set time for your playing, set time for all other things. But if you are not controlling that, what will happen? Then when you are studying, then your game desire comes. And when you are playing, then some other desire comes. So you cannot do that perfectly. So vairagya means to renounce the unfavorable desire, whatever is not favorable. Any example anybody can give?
Video game.
Yeah, 7 minutes. Yeah. What?
Video games is one of a desire to play before you're done with your homework.
Yeah, that desire is there, but what will happen? Like you have a intense desire, then what will happen? You even don't do your homework and start playing with video games, right?
Yes.
Then it is unfavorable. So what you have to do? You have to practice And that desire, when it comes, he said, no, wait, let me complete my homework and then I will do it. So that is the renunciation. By these two ways, mind can be controlled. Krishna says to Arjuna. Krishna agrees with Arjuna, says, Ashanshayam Mahabaho, Mano Durni Graham Chalam. He says that it is very difficult for us to control this mind. What you are telling is correct. But by abhyasa or practice and by vairagya or renunciation, unfavorable desires, one can control the mind. Okay? And then he also talks about what is called as yoga ladder. So there are three different yoga. One is called as jnana yoga, dhyana or karma yoga, and bhakti yoga. So it starts from karma yoga is down here. As one climbs up, it can go to jnana, dhyana, and finally bhakti yoga. So bhakti yoga is on the top on the yoga ladder. So so what is the verse which is telling? Let's recite that verse. That is 647, the last, I think the last verse. Let us go of the 6th chapter. Let us see.
Prabhuji, what page?
Page? You are looking at Bhagavad Gita?
Yes.
Let's see here on my screen. Because I don't have Bhagavad Gita on, so page you can check later. But here you can see the last. Is it the last verse? No, it's not. No, last one. This is verse number 47.
Talk with Yogi Nam, right?
Yeah, Yoginam api sarvesham.
Last verse.
So which chapter I am looking at?
You're on 7th.
Okay, that's why. I'm sorry. I'll go back. This is Dhyana Yoga. So this particular verse. So let's recite together. Yoginam api sarvesham
Sarvesham
Adgatenantaratmana
Madgatenantaratmana
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam
Shraddhavan bhajate yo mam.
Tame yuktatamo matah.
Tamo mataha.
So until here, Krishna talks about different yogas. This ladder, he talks about the karma yoga, which is somewhere here. Then jnana yoga, dhyana yoga. One is climbing, and the highest of them, yoginam api sarvesham, madgaten antaratmana. Means one who is totally devoted to me. You can see the translation. What is it? You can read the translation. Anybody can read? Any volunteers?
Me, I'll do it.
Okay, go ahead.
And of all yogis, the one with great faith who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me. He is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion.
So what is Krishna's opinion? Who is at the highest ladder? Who?
Person that has the
In me, thinking about me, and renders transcendental loving service. What is this transcendental loving service? Is bhakti. He is most intimately intimate means very close. You have very close friends. That is called an intimate friend. He's intimately united me with in yoga. Yoga means to unite in a positive way. The soul and the super soul, when we have connection, when we have relationship with anyone, we can have intimacy. That is yoga. That is highest of all. It is highest. See? That is the opinion of Krishna. So Bhakti Yoga, according to him, is highest. And now the 6 other chapters will start, which will discuss about Bhakti Yoga. So let's see how the chapter sections were. First was advancing in yoga through detached work in this chapter. Then the Yoga Rudha stage, which is here, which I mentioned. This is the Dhyana and Samadhi stage, when one has gone through the lower stages and gone into the Yoga Rudha stage. Then further stages in the practice of yoga, the necessity of controlling the mind, and the destination of the unsuccessful yogi. So let's revise like what we have learned today in all the chapters, and then we have questions for a few minutes, and that's it. So the first chapter was the fourth chapter. The acronym was years. We discussed about these important points, that Krishna is the absolute truth, supreme personality of Godhead, who comes to the world to protect dharma. Dharma word is repeating, right? Krishna, as first word, the starts from the and ends to last verse is ending at ma. So dharma is always there in Bhagavad Gita. So one who know this is factually liberated. Then says actions are transcendental when executed in full knowledge that Krishna is the supreme goal of all paths. That is karma, akarma, and vikarma. That kind of concept is here. And acting is pure devotional service is akarma, free from reactions. Then there are different level of sacrifices prescribed according to one's level of realization. That is discussed there. And then there is transcendental knowledge and liberation. That is discussed. Okay. Then comes chapter so what is the acronym here? Years. Eternal education, accurate understanding, how we are, Krishna clears up the understanding, then removing the reactions, and then the sacrifice. Okay. And how one can do sacrifice? By surrendering to a spiritual master. Tadvidhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninah tattvadarshinaha. So in the chapter number 5, which is entitled Action in Krishna Consciousness, what we saw the acronym is STEP. STEP first means stay in the world. One can stay in the world, do its activities. How he can please the Lord? By devoting all his activities for the pleasure of the Lord. So Krishna told Arjuna to fight, but he says, fight for my sake. Don't think to renounce everything and go to the forest. So that is to stay in this world. So example was given that a lotus leaf is there, the water is there, right? So even though the water is there, it is not touching the lotus leaf. So one is staying in the world, doing its activity, but is not attached to it. Then there are three doers: the individual soul, the super soul, and material nature. Then equal vision, a person who sees super soul, who is realized means he goes beyond this concept. He understands that he is not this body, he is a super soul, and he does what is called as devotional service or akarma. What happens? He becomes an advanced spiritualist and see every life form, there is super soul in everyone. See, equal vision happens in their mind. And what happens after that? One attains the peace. Because of that particular understanding, he sees that Krishna is the proprietor of everything. He is everywhere in the world. Everything comes from him. That understanding comes in his mind. Then he thinks, oh, this thing, what Krishna has given me, I am just using it. It is not mine. This body is also not mine. When that consciousness comes, one becomes very peaceful. So that is the peace formula. Then what we learned in the 6th chapter, which is called Atma Sanyama or Dhyana Yoga. Dhyana Yoga is difficult for, like, for example, we learned this acronym called EASY. Mind is our enemy as well as our friend. When it is controlled, it is our friend. When it is uncontrolled, it is our enemy. Then the discussion of Ashtanga Yoga was given. And when Krishna gave the Ashtanga Yoga description, Arjuna said, oh, this is so difficult for me to do. How I can do it? So then he says, then there is a discussion of success and failure. Arjuna asks that what happens to a person who goes to the higher stages but cannot complete his thing? Krishna says, no worries. He will come back in the human form of life. Suchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yogo Bhrashto Abhijayate. He will take birth there and continue from where he left off. So don't worry about it. One should always think about me and do the activity. Then he talks about the yogi and there are different yogas that we mentioned. Yogi, the bhakti yogi is the highest in this ladder, as we discussed here. Now, any questions or any clarifications we can now discuss? We have like 4 or 5 minutes and we are finishing it off. Yes. Yes, Advaita Chandra.
Yes, Hare Krishna. So, I wanted to particularly clarify that here in the Ashtanga Yoga section, Krishna described, like Arjuna asked a question. Of course, that's a classified section that was made in the acronym. But when he was in that section, also, and Arjuna asked that question, Chanchalam Vimana Krishna, and Krishna answers that. And then we say that Bhakti Yoga is the easiest process, and hence we're taking it. Of course, um, that's a separate topic, but we all understand that. My main question here is that the mind, controlling the mind, seems to be part of the section where Krishna described with the Ashtanga Yoga. But it's also applicable for us who are in Bhakti. It's also very much applicable for us who are in Bhakti. So when you say that, Ashtanga Yoga is very difficult and things like that, and then this controlling of the mind comes in Ashtanga Yoga, but then it's also applicable in Bhakti Yoga, and we say that Bhakti Yoga is much easier, but the main problem Arjuna had with Ashtanga Yoga is controlling the mind. So if that could be clarified.
Clarification, that's a very good question. The clarification is when there is Ashtanga Yoga there, you see there are different steps. Yama, Niyama, you are controlling your senses. And you are working on asana, you are doing different sitting portion. Pranayam, you're controlling the life air to control the mind. So in spite of doing all these things, still there you have to go into dhyana and samadhi stage to actually again understand the Supreme Lord. But in the path of bhakti, when we do all our activities for the pleasure of the Lord, then we don't have to go through this process because our mind is always thinking about doing activities for Lord and his devotees, and the mood of service is there. And because of that mood of service, these activities are happening at the background. We don't understand it, but it is happening. But this one, like looking at your nose tip and then doing it, it is so difficult, not practically possible in Kali Yuga, in the Yuga we are living. It was there possible in Satya Yuga. So that's why Arjuna says it's not possible. So Krishna says to Arjuna, okay, just fight, think about me and fight. Maam anusmara yudhyacha. So when he thinks about Krishna and fight, so whatever activities he is doing, it is actually giving the same result that a yogi is performing. So does that clarify your question?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you. Haribol. Hey, yeah, Divyansh, your question?
My question, like, I think one of chapter 4 or 3 or 5, but so the Bhagavad Gita was originally given to the
Yes.
sun god and then to Manu, right?
Uh-huh. Yes.
So would that mean there's technically more than one Bhagavad Gita because the conversations would be different and the people it's passed down through?
That's a
Like,
very good point, actually. There is technically, because the knowledge that has been given there is the same. It may be have mentioned in a different way, but the knowledge is given in a very same. It's the same knowledge, which has
yeah,
been
but it's
karma.
the same.
Yeah, the content, like for example, it may be explained in a different way, but for example, it is also explaining about karma, jnana, and yoga and bhakti, and telling about the same thing. Because if you see in Srimad Bhagavatam also, Krishna says this knowledge to Uddhava. And you can see there is so much parallels from Bhagavad Gita, but he tells so many things in a different way. According to time, place, and circumstances, Lord will give the particular advice, but the content would be the same. Would that answer your question, Divyansh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but the context is different and they are in different yugas, so the yuga dharma is different. So what if what if they
Yes.
spoke more about a certain yoga in one of them than the other, or one process of devotion? Would that be possible?
That's a very good point, actually, because it is recommended that in Satya Yoga, a particular process, yoga process is meditation is referred to the process. But the thing is that the ultimate result, as I was mentioning to Advaita Chandra, is like ultimate result of the yoga process is what? To meditate on the Supreme Lord, right? And that culminates in bhakti. So whether it is a yoga dharma that time, the idea is to reach the process of bhakti, right? So when it is given to sun god, it is given like all the different aspects are discussed by Krishna and mentioned that bhakti is very dearest process for me. The same thing is mentioned there, but maybe in a different way. That's what I wanted to say. Yes. Any other questions?
No.
No, Prabhuji.
Okay. So we would again see all of you in the next 3 chapters on Tuesday at 7:30. So thank you very much. And if you have any questions, you can also post that in the group also. So we'll try to answer them next time when we discuss. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hare
Thank you.
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna.
Thank you so much,
Bye.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
so much. Bye. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.